Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to be watching Chapter 3, Lesson 2. We've already discussed that the French came here and started trading furs with the Native Americans. And today we're going to continue that. After you watch this slideshow, you're going to return to slide 6 and complete your homework. Let's get started. All right. Explorers from far away. Think about this while you read. Why did the French want to explore the Great Lakes? The French came first. The French were the first Europeans to come here. Europeans are people who lived in Europe. It's a region of land across the Atlantic Ocean, and it makes up several different countries. They can be from countries like Britain and France. There are other countries in Europe too. It was during this time that people from Europe moved west to explore. They were often exploring North America. Someone who explores learns about a place which is new to him or her. He or she finds out about the land and the people. Think like a historian. Why did they come? You already know one reason the French came. They came to trade. Furs were scarce in France. They traded with the tribes to get furs to take home. The French found the land around Michigan had many animals with nice fur. The beaver was a good example. The French began to trade with the tribes for furs. Then they sold the furs in Europe. The profits they made attracted more fur traders. Soldiers came to protect the traders. They had no idea North America was so large. There were no good maps in those days. They thought they would find a water route across it. They really wanted to sail to China. They thought it was too far away, and maybe it was just west of the Great Lakes. Why did they want to get to China? Spices and silk were also scarce in France. They did not have silk to make fine clothes. China had silk and spices. Those could have been bought cheaply in China and then sold in France. This is why the French wanted to find a shortcut to China. So a little bit of this, boys and girls, was they were greedy. They wanted the things like spices and silks from China, and they wanted to bring them back to France and then sell them there to people who wanted them, and they would probably make quite a bit of money. There's a map on the bottom of page 89 of what they were trying to do. They left France and they tried to come across North America through the Great Lakes and trying to go around the world and get to China. The problem was they didn't realize that North America was so large. To find a shortcut, the French explored. They traveled along the St. Lawrence River. They used this big river like a highway. Their first forts and towns were settled along it. They kept going west. Finally, they found the Great Lakes. The French explored the rivers to find where the water went. And there's a really good map of that right on the center of the page. Along with traders, others came. Missionaries and priests came too. They were religious people. They did not come to make money. They wanted to tell the tribes, or Native Americans, about God. Priests lived with the tribes. They learned their languages and their customs. They tried hard to be their friends. And at the top of page 91, there were 3 reasons the French came here. You're going to need this for your homework. They came to find a way to China. They came to trade furs. And they came to tell the tribes about God. When did they arrive? The French reached Michigan a long time ago. They began to arrive in the 1600s. The first ones came about 1620. Learning who came, why they came, and when they came are good things to know. These are some questions that historians ask about the past. Now, whose land is it? Soon the French tried to claim the land of Canada and the Great Lakes. They said it was now belonged to the French, and they called it New France. Of course, they forgot the tribes were here first. The Europeans thought of themselves as better than the tribes. Europeans claimed every land which was new to them. Take the land and make it yours. This was their thinking at the time. The first Frenchman here, we think, we're not 100% sure. Who was the first French person to reach Michigan? Who was the first to meet the tribes here? He was a young man named Brulé. He lived far from here. His home was along the St. Lawrence River. Brulé had a thrilling life. He joined the Native Americans on long canoe trips. Young Brulé wanted to see where the rivers went. Maybe he would find China. Brulé reached Michigan about 1620. He visited the Upper Peninsula. We do not know much about what Brulé saw. This is because he could not read and write. He did know how to draw and make good maps. Can you imagine what it was like for Brulé? Most of the time he was alone with Native Americans. His trips may have lasted for months. Did he run out of food? Was he ever lost? Was he excited about what he saw? Don't go that way. Brulé had to watch the way he went. He could not canoe on Lake Ontario or Lake Erie. Why? The French had enemies in that area, or in this area. They were the Iroquois tribes lived along the lakes. The Iroquois hated the French. This was because the French helped the Huron tribe fight the Iroquois. The Iroquois never forgave them. The French wanted the Ottawa River to go, or use the Ottawa River to go west. Can you find it on the map on the center of this page? This river took them to the northern part of Lake Huron. This is why the French reached the Upper Peninsula first. And you can see the depiction there on the center of page 93. And there's a timeline there for you to look at also. Okay, the fur trade. Each person had one job. The French used this river for a long time. They brought things to trade in their canoes. They met the tribes at Mackinac Island. Once the trading was done, they put the furs in their canoes. They paddled back to Montreal in Canada. Montreal is a big city in Canada. One group of the men always paddled the canoes. Another group did the trading with the tribes. There were clerks who counted the furs. The tribes caught the animals. They also got the furs ready for trade. People in France made the trade goods. They made things like beads, cooking pots, the guns, and the traps. Each group had one job. This made the fur trading work smoothly. You can see people doing this at work today. Each group learns to do one job. They become very good at doing this one thing. This is called specialization. It helps businesses run smoothly. It cuts cost on waste. It cuts down on waste. It helps products cost less. With specialization, we depend on each other. In the fur trade, the clerks would not be good at being canoe paddlers. They would not have the muscles. The paddlers might not be good at counting the furs. They may not do well with math. It takes people with different skills to make a strong team. So in this case, each of the people involved in the fur trading had their own specific job. Whether they paddled a canoe, whether they counted furs, whether they were the tribes members that did the hunting and got the furs, whether they were the French fur trading people who brought and made metal pots and blankets. Everyone had a specific job and helped each other that way. And that's why the fur trade was so successful. All right, now you're going to go to this slide number 6 and answer these questions. Name the 3 reasons why around the triangle of why the French came to Michigan. And then take the pink line tool that's right above that red box and click on it and drag it over to the map to show the route. And you can go back and look at the slides where the route was. And then there's a couple of questions. What effect did the French have on Michigan and the people who lived here? That's at the very bottom of the left-hand side. And then 2 short essays. The French claimed Michigan but the tribes were here first. Was this right for the French to do? Give some reasons to support your answer. And then the last question, explain what specialization is and give an example from this lesson. All right, that's all for now.